So, yeah. And I know what you guys are going to say. Well, he redeemed himself later on. That still does not change the fact that this man betrayed his friends, who were basically like family. Seriously, if I had a team member who acted like that, I will not hesitate to kick them out of my team. Still, and this man had the audacity to call Darius a traitor in Chaos Theory? Like, seriously, I wish I was actually there so that way I could kill this man myself. Honestly, Brooklyn should have just decided to date Darius instead. So, yeah. Anyways, so back onto the what if. So, if Brooklyn chose to date Darius, like I said before, she'll most likely do it on Isla Nublar and just confess her feelings to him. And Darius will actually accept it, because in this alternative universe, he's been having the same feelings for Brooklyn. Which means that Brooklyn will not feel super heartbroken with Kenji. This will probably change a few things in Season 4, like the interactions between, like, possibly the lack of interactions between Brooklyn and Kenji. But instead, more interesting ones between Brooklyn and Darius. Now, what about Season 5? What about Season 5 of Cretaceous? This is where things will get really interesting. All the interesting moments that we saw in the original series would actually possibly turn out to be more like really interesting but life-threatening dates. Kind of, if you want to put it that way. Honestly, Brooklyn and Darius would have made a pretty damn great couple. Brooklyn will not have to feel super heartbroken with Kenji, and honestly, yeah, a lot could have went down in the Cretaceous timeline. Now, what about the Chaos Theory timeline? Because we all know in the original Chaos Theory timeline, Brooklyn and Kenji were still a thing until Brooklyn got so distracted with her work, and of course Kenji wanting to turn her into someone that she's not. And of course the whole pathetic, stupid thing about Kenji hating Darius because he wasn't there that night when Brooklyn quote-unquote died. Now, what if it was different? What if Darius and Brooklyn were a thing? We saw in the original timeline that Darius was actually had no problem with Brooklyn being on who she is. And he was willing to accept her as her own person. She doesn't have to change herself in order to become someone that she doesn't want to be. Honestly, I think their relationship in the Chaos Theory timeline would actually be a bit more deeper than Kenji and Brooklyn's relationship in the original timeline. In this timeline, we can actually say that Darius and Brooklyn actually start living together. Instead of Brooklyn living in her own secret apartment, she would actually most likely possibly be living with Darius. Which means we will not get that super awkward moment between the two of them in episode 3 of season 2. Hell, we can even say that these two even act like a married couple. Now, I'm not going to say that they get married in the Chaos Theory timeline. Brooklyn will most likely still do the thing that she's doing in the original timeline, but with the only difference being she's in a relationship with Darius. And since she was not in a relationship with Kenji in the original timeline, and a bunch of other things that I already explained, like a bunch of other things that I already explained, basically they would not really happen, but instead they would be changed with something entirely different. Like I said before, Brooklyn will end up be living with Darius, and they'll act like a married couple instead of like a boyfriend and girlfriend thing. And honestly, Darius will be more affected by Brooklyn's death with the fact that she was his girlfriend. But we could say, folks, in this timeline, Darius was planning on proposing to Brooklyn. That's right. In this timeline, we can say that Darius was planning on proposing to Brooklyn. That would be the biggest change in this timeline. It would be possibly the biggest change in this timeline. In this timeline, Darius was planning on proposing to Brooklyn. We could possibly say that the awkward moment does happen, but not in the way that you think. We could kind of say that Darius accidentally mentioned something about if we get married one day, this will catch Brooklyn off guard, and, well, she would figure out that Darius is planning on asking her to marry him. Now, instead of acting the way she did in the original timeline, she would act super flustered. She wouldn't even know what to do or what to say. She'll be like, yeah, she'll basically be like that. she could still have the same reaction that she had in the original timeline, but a bit more different. Instead of her saying, I'm not ready for another relationship yet, it would her just being speechless because she finds out that Darius has been planning on proposing to her. This will be drastically different from the original timeline where Kenji, I don't think we ever got word that he was planning on proposing to Brooklyn. But in this timeline, Darius was planning on proposing to Brooklyn. Now, this would make the whole reuniting thing a bit more heartbreaking for Darius and Brooklyn. Because Brooklyn knows that Darius wants to marry her. And she does want to marry him. We can say that there's far more pain and regret on her face than the original timeline. In the original timeline, it was there, but we can see that there's a huge amount of it when she sees Darius, when the group reunites with her, and like when she leaves them, she is even more heartbroken, and so is Darius. Because, well, like I said before, folks, Brooklyn does want to marry Darius in this timeline. And unlike the original timeline, where her and Kenji broke up, and where she starts to have feelings for Darius, in this timeline, very different. She and Darius got together in Season 3, and they've been together ever since, and they act like a married couple when she ended up living with him, and of course, well, the whole thing about him proposing to her. If anything, it would make her leaving her friends even more painful for her, because she still loves Darius, and she wants to marry him. But in the end, it would be very similar to the original ending. Oh yeah, and the whole about Ben knowing about the whole thing, about Brooklyn being alive the whole time. I think instead of Kenji being mad, it would be Darius, and I think he might actually hurt Ben. In this timeline, I think he might actually punch him and actually just keep his distance from Ben from now on. Because we can say that in Season 1 of Chaos Theory, Darius reveals that he was planning on asking Brooklyn to marry him. So, most likely, when the ending of Season 2, the group will know that this will be even more harder for Darius, because he literally just had to witness his future of life walk away from him, and just said, I don't care about you anymore, I got a job to finish. Anyways, that's it for this video. We're leaving off with a cliffhanger for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And tell me in the comments below, what do you think would happen if Brooklyn chose to start a relationship with Darius instead of Kenji? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Anyways, have a great day, everyone.